right, so this book right here is one of the best books on expert positioning that I've ever read, and it's called So Good They Call You a Fake by Joshua Lisec. Now, he's a $1 million ghostwriter, and what I mean by that is that he's made more than $1 million ghostwriting books for people. So he's written more than 100 books so far. And actually, all my notes from this book will be down in the video description along with a summary. And I've also got two more book recommendations that are really going to help you cement that expert status that you're looking for. But one thing that I'll never forget from reading this book, when you're trying to say that someone else is an expert, you never say something like, she's got a really good online course on the subject. She's an expert. What you typically say is she wrote the book on the subject, therefore she is an expert. That right there tells you that if you want to be perceived as an expert, you have to write a book. Now, obviously, it's Joshua telling you that, and he's a ghostwriter. Reminds me of that saying that you never ask the barber if you need a haircut. But in this case, I think he's absolutely right. When somebody has a book, when they can point to something that they've published, where your entire philosophy is laid out, all your big ideas and principles, you have a book that you can send to somebody. Like, you can't mail a tweet to a client. So having a book really solves a lot of problems. And one of the biggest problems that you'll have is basically an obscurity problem. So like nobody knows who you are. But if you have a book, then it raises your profile. And people, once that book gets shared and passed around, and once you establish that credibility, that authority as being an author, like it's even like in the word, like you are an author, you are an authority. But there are tons of other excellent ideas, strategies, principles, ways of thinking in this book. But I'm also going to recommend two more. And the first is called $1 Billion Communication Skills by a friend of mine, actually, John A. Brink. And a fun fact, I'm actually in this book. I'm actually mentioned inside, like in the text of this book, as being an expert in the social media field and knowing what I'm talking about when it comes to selling books. But this one's a great communications book, and it's by someone who has a lot of credibility and authority just from where he had to build himself up from. Like, he was never a natural speaker. Like, he showed up in Canada as, I forget what age, but he was super young, didn't speak the language, was terrified of public speaking, and now, runs highly profitable companies, and he's got a podcast, like YouTube channel with, a million subscribers or something like that. So he's done extremely well, and he overcame a whole bunch of communications handicaps and disadvantages and things like that. So $1 Billion Communication is really good, and I'll leave a link to that book down in the video description. Same as this one. It's called How to Suck as a Leader by Travis Dalrymple. And this one's kind of taken off as well. I think it sold about 1,000 copies within a couple of weeks of being published. And, I've helped with that, being the expert in book promotion and marketing that I am. But honestly, I can't take much credit at all for the success of this book because it really is good. His approach in the book is kind of via negativa, by negation. What he shows you is how not to be a leader. You take the negative examples in this book and then do the opposite of what he says to do here, and you'll be a pretty damn good leader. He backs this up with 2 decades of leadership experience himself. So I've got a couple solid quotes from this book, and I'll read a couple of them to you. And these are all from So Good They Call You a Fake. And the first one, Joshua says, if you're not getting accused of fraud because your results are so mind-blowing to normies, you aren't challenging yourself. Be so good they call you a fake. You have to find some way to stand out. You have to really just get the kind of results and have the evidence that you are who you say you are. Be so strong and almost like unbelievable if you want to break through the noise and actually be seen as an expert. So if you don't have people who literally don't believe that you're capable, like a human being is capable of getting results like this, then you're going to find it harder than it has to be, certainly, to break into any sort of market and achieve that top 1% expert status. Because that's what experts are. They are the best of the best. Like, you look at somebody who's just top 1% in what they do, and it's this level of, I could never do that. And you really, that is what you have to go for if you want to be so good that people call you a fake. The next quote is, bad reviews from bad people are good reviews. This means that there's an audience for your book, your ideas, some group that you appeal to, who by definition is going to be so different and even repulsive to other groups. The people that you're trying to reach, if they just have no respect for this person at all, and that person gives you a negative review, that's actually a good review because you don't want those people saying nice things about you. So don't worry so much about bad reviews. What you want instead is to be hated by the right people. Which leads into this next quote. He says, all publicity is good publicity, you've heard it said, but I say unto you, the best publicity is absolute hatred. Now, like hate, anger, things like that, these are high activation emotions that get people talking and sharing stuff online. By contrast, sadness is a low activation emotion. Think of how you feel when you're sad as opposed to how you feel when you're angry. When you're angry about something, you're fired up and you just want to share that feeling with somebody who could feel just as angry as you are. You want to make other people upset at this obvious injustice. So if you want lots of bad reviews from bad people, you really, I mean, this may not be a strategy that you want to go for, and fair enough. But if you can make yourself hated by the right people and have those people just be so vocal about their hatred of you that they just can't stop talking about you, that is some of the best publicity that you will ever get in your entire life. It will transform your business, full stop. A couple more great quotes from this book. He says, "The more people who claim you're too good to be true, the more publicity you get." And that just comes back to being so good they call you a fake. And he also says, if you're not accused of fraud, you're just not that good yet. And here again, he says, if your results are believable, they're invisible. And it's hard being invisible when you have a business. Like, that is your number one problem. At least for most people, it's an obscurity problem. Like, nobody knows who you are. They don't know that you're an expert because they don't know you exist. So solving that is your number one problem. And that is a very, very difficult problem for a lot of people to solve, which leads into the last quote that I'm going to share here, which is where he says, everything hard about business gets easier when you have a book. Thanks very much for watching this video. If you want to build an unbreakable reading habit, watch this video right here. Happy reading.
I don't waste time, no, I make time. All these people wanna hate, fine, I'ma make mine. While you sitting there complaining, I'll be training. While you sitting there just waiting, I'm creating. Yeah.